英語聞き流しリスニング、英語テキストと MP3 ダウンロード、その他の物語はホームページからお聞きいただけます。88thpp.com 88thpp.com
Hi, this is your host, Hidemi Woods. Here, I read episodes from my book titled An Old Tree in Kyoto. Today, I'm reading an episode called His Toupee. This is about my father's toupee that he was wearing briefly. His toupee. My father's hair started thinning in his late 20s, and he has become bald by his mid-30s. As a child, I knew him only as a bald man. One day, I came home from school and found that my father's head was full of hair all of a sudden. I was so surprised that I asked him what had happened. "Nothing," he replied. I rushed to my mother and asked the same question. She said, "His hair grew back today." I wondered how long I had spent at school. My conclusion was a toupee, except for which there was no other explanation. But my mother bluntly denied it. She reiterated his hair had simply grown back in one day. From her tone, I sensed that this was a sore subject I shouldn't mention further. Back then, it had been my favorite trick that I quietly slit the bathroom door open and startled my father while he was taking a bath. I played the trick one evening and saw him covering his removed toupee frantically with a basin. Unfortunately, the basin rolled down from the toupee, making it lay bare. His embarrassed eyes met mine. I closed the door without saying a word and never played the trick again. I had lived with an unaccustomed-looking father in an awkward atmosphere for next few weeks. Then his toupee days came to an abrupt end, and he returned to a bald man as if nothing had happened. We've never talked about it to date. A couple of years ago, I had a chance to see my cousin, and we talked about our childhood memories. He said he hardly remembered his childhood, but did remember one thing vividly. His only memory was that my father showed up at his house wearing a toupee. That was today's episode. That episode happened when I was probably 10 or 11 years old. My mother is a chronic liar. She lied pretty much everything, from small things to important things. She just naturally lies. I always wonder what her parents did to her, because she is a genuine natural liar. How a person grew up to be such a liar was a mystery to me. She never stops telling a lie to this day, but this toupee thing was one of her lies, and she just lied directly to my face that his toupee was his natural hair that had grown only one day, that particular day. And my mother didn't care her lies were so apparent. She just simply lies about anything. And this toupee thing happened, I suspect, because my father can't make any decisions by himself. He doesn't decide anything. I have never seen him making a decision. Only a single time I never seen him decide. And before he got married with my mother, all decision of his were depended on my grandfather. My grandfather decided everything for my father. And after the marriage, that role went passed on to my mother. And my mother decided everything for my father. He just, what should I do? He just kept saying, what should I do to my mother? It was one of his habits to ask my mother what he should do. And so my mother decided everything from lowering your voice or unbutton that very top one of your shirt, or what he should wear, or what he should tell, what he should speak. So from what he says to what he wears. His requests are all ignored. Just they went according to my mother's decisions. And my father didn't complain about it. He preferred asking for my mother's decisions to making a decision by himself. So my father was, still is, a puppet of my mother. It looked like it to me. And because my father didn't make any decision, he relied on my mother to make one for him. And those decisions varied from a trifle thing to big ones, like rebuilding an old house or starting a new family business instead of farming. Those things were big money projects, but even those things, my father depended on my mother's decisions. And the thing was, my mother wasn't good at making decisions. So, although she constantly told a lie, she constantly made a decision. She failed each decision. Her decisions never worked. They failed almost every time. So although she was, her role was a decision maker of my family, she kept failing it. So big money projects were also her failures. They ended up being a failure. And that led to close to bankruptcy. My parents failed the new family business, and so they ended up selling the family premises and house and everything. They sold everything that our family had inherited. generation after generation. My mother's decisions ruined everything. Even so, my father still didn't try to make a decision by himself. So I think he really disliked to decide. And I knew this toupee was my mother's idea too. And because my father wasn't a vain man. He wasn't vain. So a toupee couldn't be his own idea. So my mother suggested or imposed my father to wear a toupee because my mother was a queen of vanity. And she lied again. She lied it wasn't a toupee, his natural, but it was my father's natural hair. But for some reason it didn't work either, and my father suddenly stopped wearing it. But so after all, it resulted in another failure of my mother's decision because it didn't last. My father stopped wearing it. It just resulted in my cousin's traumatic memory. Oh, poor my cousin. But was my father, he was happy with it. All the failures of my mother's decisions, he was happy with them because he didn't have to decide by himself. I remember once my mother and I, it's a long time ago, my mother and I took a trip and stayed at a hotel. And we spent the night in the hotel room, and the next morning, early in the morning, we were still in bed. And then my father woke us up by calling my mother. And in the hotel room, my mother picked up the phone. What happened? What kind of emergency it was? And then it was my father, and he called in order to ask my mother whether he should take in the dried laundry inside the house or not. He couldn't decide that much. And after those years, my father had become so unhappy because financially and mentally because my mother's bad decisions. And he lost his house, his inherited land. He lost everything because of my mother. And he has lived such an unhappy life now. But I think he should have learned a lesson when it was only about a toupee or something that travel. Then things didn't escalate this much. He ended up losing the fortune, but he should have learned a lesson much earlier with those travel things like a toupee. The lesson that if he depends on my mother's decision, nothing would work. But he just kept going on, so he became so unhappy. I think people can't become happy if they avoid to do difficult things. Even though things are difficult to do for them, they should do them by themselves. Otherwise, they cannot be happy, I guess. That's all for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you join me again soon. I'm Hidemi Woods. Until next time, take care and be well.
Audiobook, The Family in Kyoto, One Japanese Girl Got Freedom by Hidemi Woods on sale at online stores or apps. Apple Books, Google Play, Audible, 43 available distributors in total. Audiobook, Japanese Dream by Hidemi Woods on sale at online stores or apps. Apple, Audible, Google Play, Nook Audiobooks, 43 available distributors in total.
英語聞き流しリスニング、英語テキストと MP3 ダウンロード、その他の物語はホームページからお聞きいただけます。88thpp.com 88thpp.com